Influencing popular culture, politics, and everything in between. The local station takes you ringside as we discuss the crazy world that is professional wrestling. This is Going Ringside with the local station.
Hello, I'm Scott Johnson, and welcome to Going Ringside. So glad you could be with us here today, and oh my God, what has happened in this presidential election being overtaken by pro wrestling. I had my whole show planned for this week. Everything got blown up over the past week when it started with Dave Bautista coming out, going after Trump, endorsing Harris, then The Undertaker responding, going after Harris and Bautista. Holy crap. We got a lot to unpack on this episode, and we will. We've got guests like Ed Dean, a political talk show host, to help us unpack this a little later on. Victoria Crawford, formerly Alicia Fox, is also here. She'll join us a little later in the show. But first, I got to talk a little about last week, because we had a huge episode last week involving the Vince McMahon case, and I don't want to overlook that because more happened in the past week. So the accuser, Jordynne Grace, her lawyers have filed another lawsuit trying to get medical records from a facility that they claim McMahon was using in their allegations that he's denied of sex trafficking of Grant while she was an employee. So that's a big thing that's out there. You can go read about that. It's all over the place. But in the news conference, I was in the news conference. It was a virtual news conference through Zoom. I spoke with Ann Callis, the attorney for Jordynne Grace, because I've been curious, and you want to hear this. Who are they going to have testify? If this goes to trial for Vince McMahon, who do they call to the stand? So I asked her. Here's what she says. This is Scott Johnson with the Going Ringside podcast. For Ms. Callis, I have a broader legal question for you. You guys have been, for the last 2 weeks, kind of opening a legal strategy, asking for the NDAs to be withdrawn from WWE last week. Now you're talking about this issue as you have a hold on the case right now because of the DOJ investigation. My question for you is if this does eventually move forward, and go to trial, is there anyone, no matter how high profile, you're not willing to ask to testify or compelled to be part of this trial? Because McMahon is very close to some extremely high profile people.
Well, we filed this lawsuit knowing who Mr. McMahon is, knowing about the WWE and John Laurinaitis. There will not, we can guarantee there will not be a stone unturned in our pursuance of seeking justice for Jordynne. We won't be intimidated.
So that statement is fascinating to me. If this goes to trial, because right now McMahon is under DOJ investigation and the trial is temporarily on hold, it means you could see some very familiar faces compelled to take the stand in a Vince McMahon trial. We don't know who that would be, but I'll let you guess. McMahon knows a lot of extremely high-profile people. So watch for that. We've monitored and covered the McMahon case as much as anyone in the world. So stay tuned to Going Ringside. We will cover every major development. But I wanted to get that one out there because that just happened in the past week. But let's turn to politics right now. Oh, my God, I can't believe what happened. It started with Bautista, then The Undertaker, both having competing videos. I just want to show them to you right now. First, it started early last week with Bautista on Jimmy Kimmel doing, I think, a pretty effective anti-Trump video. Then Taker doing what has become an effective pro-Trump video, sitting next to Donald Trump and the other brother of destruction, Kane, who's a politician. Here's a quick clip of what both men have put out on social media.
Thing that Donald Trump has ever done has divided this country. America will only be great if you vote for me. And it's bullshit. It's not making America great. It's making Donald Trump great.
Choice is yours. You can go with President Trump, Kane, and The Undertaker, or you can take Kamala Harris, Dave Bautista, and Tim Walz. Choose wisely.
So, so fascinating on so many levels. One, Taker and Bautista had one of the great feuds ever back when they were both active in the early 2000s. So these are two guys who literally have faced each other. They're both as high profile as it gets. Taker, many consider the greatest wrestler of all time. Bautista has become one of the great wrestlers ever, and then became one of the, maybe the best wrestler turned actor in Hollywood with the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and now he's branched out and done so much more. So having these two high-profile guys endorsing each respective candidate, and then, I don't know if you saw, you can go check it out online, Trump actually showed up to a Pennsylvania rally to Undertaker's theme music. I'm like, this is just insane how much wrestling has overtaken it. And this came after the summer with Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura. And if that wasn't enough, Jim Cornette decides to weigh in. Because if you didn't know, James E., maybe the most controversial, outspoken podcaster now in wrestling in the world, he spoke out on this because he is anti-Trump through and through and is not holding back about it. He really goes after Donald Trump. Well, this is what I put on TikTok about his response to what The Undertaker and Kane did. Hey, I'm Scott Johnson, host of the Going Ringside podcast. Jim Cornette has gone on social media and gone off on The Undertaker and Kane for being involved in this kind of supporting of Donald Trump. Taker's having him on the show. This is what Cornette, a guy who does not like Trump, has to say. Another former great wrestler on the list of alien pod people duped by the world's most repugnant con man. Mark and Glenn, you made it this long with everyone admiring you. Then in the end, you ruin your reputations and try to destroy the country along with them. I'm ashamed for you. Jim Cornette, one of the biggest mouths in the entire world of pro wrestling, not pulling any punches against Taker and Kane. That video got about 250,000 views last I checked on TikTok. Everyone's talking about this. This is the biggest thing in the wrestling world right now. So that happened. All of it, I'm like, wow. We got to unpack this. By the way, those updates at Going Ringside on TikTok and at Going Ringside on Instagram, daily updates every day. But I brought in two people to help unpack this. First, we're going to have Ed Dean. He's the host of the Ed Dean radio show. He's a conservative talker, but I tried to keep him down the middle on this one and to talk specifically about wrestling, because Ed's also a wrestling fan. We're going to talk to him in a moment. Then friend of the show, Victoria Crawford, you knew better as Alicia Fox, will be here later. She's going to be talking to us, hey, about this. She's also going to talk about her big match coming up against Jordynne Grace. So if you're a fan of women's wrestling, you'll want to hear this a little later in the show. If you got to scroll ahead, don't miss what Victoria Crawford has to say. If you don't like the politics, you want to hear about this match if you're a fan of women's wrestling later on in the show. But let's start it right now. Here is the host of Ed Dean Radio Show. This is Ed Dean. So I brought in the perfect guy to help us break all this down. That would be the man you're looking at right there, Ed Dean, host of the popular Ed Dean Radio Show. Ed, thanks for joining us back on the show.
Scott, I love it. You come on mine, I come on yours. I don't do it for many, but I do it for you.
I appreciate that a lot, Ed. And this is a fun one because not only are you a political guy, you are a wrestling fan. That's so right. You're the perfect guy for this. And before we get to Bautista Undertaker, which is what everyone's been talking about, I want to back up to the summer. Wrestling kind of overtook this campaign at the Republican National Convention. It started with Hulk Hogan doing that big rip-off-the-shirt speech at the RNC.
That's right.
And then a few weeks later, Jesse Ventura is the Democratic response, endorsing Harris and kind of going off after Hogan. What did you think of this just kind of starting? Wrestling became the center of it with Hogan and Ventura over the summer.
Well, I mean, it's a Trump thing. You've talked about it on your show. Trump is he's not strange or nothing new to Vince McMahon going back to the WrestleManias back in the 2000s and stuff, at all of the Trump plazas. And of course, he'd being involved with Vince McMahon, and the loser was going to lose their hair. Remember all that? What was really interesting, Hogan, who I love, but if you listen to Jamie Cornette and others, he's known to embellish a little bit. Hogan was on, I think it was with Leland Bittert or Chris Cuomo from newsnation.com. And Hogan, on the week before, now follow me now, the week before the June 27th debate between Biden, and then of course he dropped that afterwards, between Biden and Trump, Hogan was interviewed and they asked him, I got the clip, he goes, hey Hulkster, who do you support? He goes, well, you know, something, brother, right? In other words, he wouldn't take a position. He was like, well, you know, both sides need to, and I may have to come in. And then 3.5 weeks later, he's on the front stage of the RNC convention. I mean, It didn't make sense. I still think Hogan, for entertainment purposes, was the greatest speech at the RNC. Trust me, it's for pure entertainment.
Yeah.
And then Jesse.
I will say Jesse wasn't a surprise. I mean, he's a political guy.
Yeah, but I mean, Hogan was just, I mean, Hogan, Hogan, the finger in the air, I get it, but it still was the best speech. But why not? I mean, Kamala's out there, over the weekend bringing up, which is fine, Usher and Lizzo and other celebrities. Trump, I mean, bringing Hogan and a few others. I think if you had Hogan more on the campaign, it would garner him more support.
So let's fast forward to what happened in the last week and a half. Let me tell this in order. So,
all right,
Dave Bautista, well-known Democrat, big supporter of Harris, this is his prize, goes on Jimmy Kimmel, who's kind of the same thing. Does this kind of masculine anti-Trump commercial. I thought they did a pretty good job with it. It was, I think, one of the more effective ones that kind of the Harris side has produced with Dave Bautista. And then a few days later, we get the word that Undertaker stole the Trump interview from me. He's going on Undertaker's podcast, the 6 Feet Under podcast, and they do this video with Kane, Glenn Jacobs, and Undertaker, the brothers of destruction,
right,
sitting on each side of Trump, endorsing Trump and mocking Harris Walls and Dave Bautista. The wrestling world exploded over this because Bautista and Taker have feuded before. They had a real life, long time feud in the 2000s. What do you take from this? This was incredible.
Well, I guess it was a rhetorical answer. Were you surprised by any of Bautista? I mean, Bautista's a big Hollywood celebrity and some stuff.
Yeah.
So I get that. Undertaker is married to a very conservative individual down from Palatka, by the way, down south of you. She's a very, very Christian-oriented individual. Undertaker's just been that way. He's never been really much involved in politics. But remember, Taker started his in Mid-South, Jerry Lawler, Kane area, and very conservative area from there. So I'm not really surprised. I'm just saying, are you surprised that they become more boisterous over these elections?
I'm surprised
20 years ago, they wouldn't have been that way.
No, but Taker's kind of retired. Kane's a politician, but Taker is retired now, so I'm not surprised. Bautista, he's in Hollywood. This goes with his career path. I'm not saying that he doesn't genuinely feel this way, but he is in Hollywood, so it's not a surprise. And on the celebrity endorsement, I want to get to Cornette in a bit, but it's interesting. So for the last 10, and you've talked about this a lot, celebrity endorsements don't, I think, mean as much as they used to. People kind of look at it negatively, like, why do we need to hear from celebrities?
Right.
Do you think that still works with wrestlers? Because there are some diehard fans, and this is a race that's on the margins because it's like 1% in those swing states. Do you think an Undertaker endorsement could sway a few hundred guys out there?
So let me point this out, Scott. I'll give you a weird analysis.
Okay.
Everybody wants to regulate social media for young kids because they may grow up and we don't want them going down this route, that route. And I'm like, wait, you're talking about regulating teenagers? We should regulate single adult men who who got gorgeous wives and girlfriends, and 80% of their time they're gaming or watching professional wrestling. I know these guys, and I'm sitting here going, to your point, now, if everything's by the margins, according to the polls, everything's razor thin, it might, depending on who it could be. Now, is it enough? I don't know. But, in some counties, 50 votes, 10 votes can make or break in some local elections. But you get some of these guys who, they're registered to vote, who just buy 24/7 into wrestling. It might, I don't know if it's a big swing for those that follow it, but who knows? But I think it could deter some, or it maybe and embolden some people to come out and vote, just if you know that wrestling crowd.
Yeah. It's its own crowd. I mean, there's millions of fans. So Trump comes out to his Pennsylvania rally. Everyone starts circulating this. I'm like, they're literally catering to people like me, to the Undertaker's theme music to his rally. Could you believe they're going that far?
Do they give a reason why? I mean, if you're trying to say that Kamala Harris is a dead woman walking, I'm talking in layman's terms, in political terms, or wrestling terms, she's going to be set to the Undertaker music, just lower her down. I got to admit, if you catch it, it's kind of entertaining out there. You know what I'm saying? But what's funny is Trump's out there, Kamala Harris, the Saturday Night Live skit, Trump's out there dancing It's Raining Men, YMCA. I'm just, I'll let that sink in for some of you out there.
Yeah.
And it's just funny, the back and forth music of that. But I get it. I mean, it's kind of, if you think Kamala's, going to be buried 6 feet under, it's kind of an entertaining segment. We'd use the Undertaker's music.
Now, on the flip side, one guy who didn't stay silent during this in the wrestling world was Jim Cornette.
I love Jimmy.
Cornette is not a fan of Trump, and he is one of the biggest voices in wrestling media. And And he, I think, I looked back at my old Kane interview. He said him and Taker were brought up in Cornette's territory in Tennessee. He like ran the opposite one of Lawler. I didn't know this. So they have a close relationship with Jim Cornette. And he went on and excoriated them. He's like, how can you support this guy? What do you think of Jim Cornette weighing in on here? Just very, very anti-Trump.
So again, I'm answering this with a rhetorical question. I love Jimmy, okay? Jimmy is so entertaining. I'm not saying you got to agree with everything. Jimmy tells the story, and I don't know if this is more of a Southern versus, which still exists, a Southern thing versus a New York. When Jimmy tells the story, when he went up to, not Scranton, but where the WWF is, the main city, where I'm thinking of what am I thinking? Connecticut,
Stamford, Connecticut.
He hated it. Jimmy used to tell. Now again, I asked it because maybe you have a little more inside information. Jimmy used to say that they knew some of the Trump people, and they said he hated being up there. So I wonder if that had a little bit to do with it, or did Jimmy give some other definition or reasons why he doesn't like Trump? He just didn't like it. I think he's had a couple run-ins with Trump at the Trump Plaza. He thought that maybe he was just, one of these uppity types. But I never really heard Jimmy explain certain reasons why he disliked Trump's.
It reminds me almost of the wrestling version of Howard Stern, a guy with an extremely controversial past who now is dead set against Donald Trump.
That's
true.
He
kind of reminds me of that dynamic in wrestling.
Yeah, you're right, because Jimmy is from the Mid-South, from Atlanta, very conservative back there. And by the way, if you go back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you look at those areas, very, very conservative areas where Mid-South and WCW, remember, as you've talked about, they didn't make the big plays, so the NWO and other areas, so they went out to California up north. It was very, Ric Flair tells the story. He goes, many people, I was the world champion, but he goes, it was mostly they knew me from the South. Very conservative area. Remember, Ric Flair, the RNC the Republicans wanted him to run for governor in 2000. And they said, well, maybe some of your past, maybe we don't. But it's just, if you look at that class that Cornette's from, it's from a very conservative area.
I am all for Taker, Bautista, back at WrestleMania. I don't care if they're too old, back in the ring. Cornette can manage one. Hogan can manage the other. I would watch.
Dude, you could do it on the pay-per-view. I'm telling you, it would get ratings. I mean, now The Rock's trying to jump in, but he's trying to. I like Dwayne.
Trying to be in the middle.
Both sides.
Yeah. But Ed Dean Radio Show, heard down here in Florida. Ed, thank you for joining us today.
Scott, thank you so much, bro.
And now we are joined by a friend of the show we haven't seen in a few weeks, Victoria Crawford, former Alicia Fox. Victoria, thank you. How have things been going?
Things are good, Scott. Thank you.
We got a lot to cover, and I want to ask you about what you're doing, but we just talked about this. So I want to ask you a couple questions. So Taker has Trump on, which we've been trying to get here on Going Ringside. Not yet. Kane's obviously involved in them. Bautista is, putting out videos. These are like the top guys ever in this industry. What do you think of that? It's just, it's unique for politics and wrestling to merge.
Yes, it is unique for politics and wrestling to merge, but they have so many similarities.
Yeah, it is. Eric Bischoff once said that it's kind of a lot of the wrestling fans go to politics because you can choose your team, your hero, and your villain. It's kind of the same thing.
It's fun. It's like, even in politics, you build your persona. I mean, you're a political reporter, but you build your persona and that crowd interaction and that performance-based message.
So I want to get your opinion on this because I was wondering about it. Celebrities endorsing politicians is kind of some people like it, some people get annoyed by it. Wrestling's different. Like, there are diehard fans who, if the right wrestler says something, they're gonna love it. Do you think that wrestlers maybe have a closer link to their fans, to maybe influence them more than an average celebrity?
I mean, I think wrestling is such a wholesome cultural activity. It's like we have a relationship with our fans and everything else, but when it comes to politics, I don't know if we share the same opinions because I definitely try to steer away from that with my base.
So you had to post some stuff on social that I posted because of the politics for Going Ringside. Everyone gets mad when you start going to politics.
They have opinions, and that's the thing too. I guess if anything, go out and vote, right?
Go
out and vote. Go out and vote.
Rock dealt with this because he endorsed 4 years ago, and then he got backlash, and Rock this year was like, nope, I'm not touching politics. I don't want anything to do with it.
The thing is go out and vote, yes, but it's you know, for myself, I try to stay away from that part on
Which
my
is
social
smart.
media
Smart, yep.
Because there's just nothing in those waters but how it pertains to wrestling.
And if you ever see like a political one that she shares because I posted it, I'm the guy. It's not her. It's not her. But I want to talk to you about other things going in your life. You have some other exciting stuff. Sitting there going through social, and I see, what's this? Victoria Crawford versus Jordynne Grace? What is happening with that?
I know. I think I was telling you a couple weeks ago, I was starting to look for some in-ring action. I mean, because for us, we have to be in the ring. That's our that's our stage, you know?
Yeah.
And so I have this match December 1st against Jordynne Grace, and she's a new up-and-coming generation superstar.
I saw a video posted where she met you, and she was marking out totally for the woman she's going to oppose.
And I was marking out for her, too, because during the pandemic, I watched a lot of TNA. I watched a lot of wrestling.
Okay.
And seeing Jordynne Grace kind of, like, have that young, like, baby face, and then seeing her develop into a superstar. I mean, she's made so many appearances on WWE. You know, the Forbidden Door is open. She's got the Forbidden Red Carpet too. And so you know, it is in our business, being able to still be able to participate in the sport is an honor. And then,
she is strong. You are going in the ring with a woman who is extremely strong.
I know.
Are you aware of this?
I know, but I'm confident in
You're
my
confident.
training skills. Hatchet, wrestling.
Yeah.
St. Augustine. Yeah.
There you go. We'll have them back on in a few weeks.
Yay.
So yeah, how did this come about? Did you know that this was coming? You've been working on this for a while? Because she's a big name to go up
She's
against.
a big name. She's a big name. Conversations, you know, we talked about this a few months ago. And so there's a lot of like logistics that go on, and then scheduling, and then, you know, if someone's going to the moon, you know, don't want to just, you know, pause that. But so in this event, you know.
And where and when, where do people see it? Who's putting it on?
Yeah, so it's actually going to be streaming live, and it's under WrestleCon. It's a convention that we have in North Carolina. I can share more details like later to come.
Look for all your social platforms.
Yes,
You'll be putting it up.
Thank you. Yeah, look for the socials. Thank you, Scott. And yeah, I'm excited because, you know, I'm confident in my training skills, but she's just a new generation with more like tricks and agility and like, you know.
I love that you say new generation because you don't strike me as the old generation. That's just my opinion. One other thing, your accelerator program with all the indie stars, how is that coming along? You guys been kind of going at it for about a month or so now?
Yes, sir. We have been going at it for about a month, and we have new enrollment all the time. But we're going to kick off our first 6-month program October 23rd. And what that is just like a really intense one-on-one with like multiple speakers and their resources and things, going ringside.
Yeah.
We're able to really give them a lot of like direct feedback on their matches, help get them bookings, you know, help give them an experience of the business of professional wrestling, which we don't teach bumps, but we do help you understand that you're a business, how to understand your brand, how to create messaging. Like, we just kind of put our experience together, and we found all the pertinent parts about this industry that we could share with you.
Is that something new wrestlers overlook? Because they're focused on, I've got to learn to talk on camera, I've got to learn to take bumps in the ring, but there's a lot more there.
I mean, speaking of new generations, I think wrestling is a business. It's always been a business. It's just how you politic, maybe.
Market yourself and get branding,
crowd interaction.
All of it.
It's the performance of something that is performance of yourself. So then there's that boundary there where you can kind of be yourself.
And I know you've got a class going on, but new
Yes.
people are watching this every day. If they're interested, do they reach out to you on social? Is there a website? What's the best option?
Yes, you can go to mastersoftheringaccelerator.com. And I've been reaching out to some people on social media and stuff, so check your messages.
Yeah.
And just sign up.
Well, Victoria Crawford, thank you for joining us again. We will see you back here next time. Thanks for delving into the politics, which is what we had to talk about today. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Going Ringside. We'll see you back here next time.
This has been Going Ringside with The Local Station, brought to you every Wednesday on your favorite podcast player, on News4Jax Plus, as well as the News4Jax YouTube channel.